Well, hello, sugar. Come on in and sit down. Now I have kept you waiting on this one twice, and I am ashamed of myself. So today I am paying up. Today is wash day. And honey, if you are young, I need you to understand something before we start. Wash day was not a chore. Wash day was a day. It took the whole of it, dark to dark, and it was the hardest work a woman did all week. Harder than the garden, harder than the canning. Monday was wash day in near about every house in that holler, and the reason was Sunday. You wore your good clothes to church on Sunday, and Monday you washed them, and that gave them the whole week to be ready again. Everything else in the week hung off of that one day. My mama hauled the water, built the fire, boiled the whites in a kettle out in the yard, beat them with a stick, scrubbed them on a board, rinsed them twice, wrung them out by hand, and hung them on a line, for 8 people, and she did it with soap she made herself out of ashes and grease. So today it's 25 things about wash day, and I am going to tell you plain how she got a white shirt white with no bleach in the house. And at number 17, I will tell you the one stain that bleach still cannot beat to this day, and what she used instead. Start at number 1, sugar. Number 1, the water came before the soap. Now the first thing you have to know is that Mama did not just turn on a tap, honey, and she did not use just any water she could get. There was a rain barrel at the corner of the house under the roof edge, and that barrel was for washing. Well water and creek water in those mountains is what they call hard. It is full of lime and iron out of the rock, and hard water fights soap. You can scrub all day in hard water and the soap will not make a proper suds. It just turns into a gray curd that gets into the cloth and leaves everything dingy and stiff. Rainwater has none of that in it. It is soft. It lathers up with half the soap, and it rinses clean out. So the rain barrel was not Mama being poor, sugar. It was Mama being right. If it had been dry and the barrel was low, she would put a handful of wood ashes or a spoon of washing soda into the well water and let it settle, and that softened it enough to work with. Everything else today depends on this one. Wash in hard water and nothing else I tell you will save you. Number 2, the soap came out of the ash hopper. And here is the part folks find hard to believe. Mama made the soap. There was a hopper out back, just a wooden box with a slanted bottom, and every bit of hardwood ash out of the stove went into it all year. When she needed soap, she poured water slow through those ashes and caught what ran out the bottom, and that liquor is lye. Then she cooked that lye together with all the grease she had saved that was too far gone for the skillet, the trimmings, the cracklings, the bacon fat that had turned. Hours of stirring in a kettle, and those 2 things, which are both of them garbage, honey, ashes and rancid grease, come together and turn into soap. It is a real chemical change with a name, saponification, and it is one of the oldest tricks people know. Her soap was soft and brown, and it smelled like smoke, and it would take the hide off your hands if you were not careful. But it cost her nothing but a day. And that is the whole spirit of wash day, sugar. Everything in it came from something somebody else would have thrown out. Number 3, sort by how dirty, not by what color. Now the modern way is to sort your wash into whites and colors, and that is fine when you have got a machine and all the water in the world. Mama had 1 kettle and water she had carried in a bucket, so she sorted a different way. She sorted by dirt. The cleanest things went first, the sheets and the pillow slips, and the white shirts and the tablecloths, then the everyday dresses and the shirts, then the children's play clothes, and last, dead last, the work clothes, and the barn clothes, and the diapers, in their own water entirely. And here is why it matters, honey. She used the same water down through all of it, the same hot soapy water, adding a little more hot as it cooled. If you wash the barn breeches first, you have ruined that water for everything after. If you wash the good sheets first, that water is still plenty good for the breeches at the end. 1 tub of water washed for 8 people because she went in the right order. Do the least dirty first, sugar. That rule is worth money in any century. Number 4. The black kettle in the yard. Here it is, sugar, the thing I promised you. Out in the yard, on 3 flat stones with a wood fire under it, sat a big black iron kettle, and that kettle is where the whites got their real cleaning. Not the tub, not the board, the kettle. She shaved lye soap into it, filled it, got a fire going under it, and boiled the white things for a good half-hour, a slow rolling boil. And boiling is not just hot water being enthusiastic, honey. Boiling does 3 separate jobs at one time. It kills what is living in the cloth, which mattered a great deal in a house with a baby and no doctor nearby. It melts body grease right out of the fibers, and body grease is what holds dirt in a collar. And it swells the fibers open so the dirt lets go. Nothing you can buy in a bottle today does all 3. So when people ask me how she got a white shirt white with no bleach, this is half the answer right here, and the sun is the other half, and I will get to that. She did not whiten the shirt, sugar. She cleaned it so thoroughly that it was white already. Number 5. The battling stick. Now, if you are boiling clothes in a kettle, you cannot exactly put your hands in there, and the clothes still have to be moved, because moving is what washing is. So there was a stick. Ours was a smooth, peeled hardwood paddle, about as long as my arm, worn pale and slick from years of it, and it lived leaned against the shed, and it never got used for anything else. You plunge it down into the kettle, and lift, and turn, and punch that laundry, over and over, and that is called battling, and in some places they call it a punch stick, or a dolly. It is doing exactly what the agitator in your washing machine does, honey. It is forcing the soapy water through the weave of the cloth, back and forth, and carrying the dirt out with it. The machine did not invent the idea, sugar. It just took over the arm. And I will tell you plain, that stick is why wash day was hard. An hour of battling a kettle full of wet sheets will find muscles in your back you did not know you had rented. Number 6. Let the board do the work, not your knuckles. The washboard is for the parts that boiling cannot fix, the collars, the cuffs, the knees of the breeches, the places where dirt is ground in. And there is a right way and a wrong way, and everybody who has never used one does it wrong. The wrong way is to grip the cloth and rub it hard up and down the whole board and skin your own knuckles doing it. The right way, and Mama would take your hands and show you, is short strokes over just the ridges, letting the cloth fold and unfold as it goes over each one. It is not the friction that cleans, honey. It is the flexing. Every ridge bends the cloth sharp, and that snaps the dirt loose out of the weave. Same reason you shake a rug instead of petting it. You soap the spot, you work it over a hand's width of the ridges, and you move on. Do it that way, and you can wash all day. Do it the other way, and you will bleed by noon, and the shirt will not be any cleaner. There is nearly always a way to do hard work that hurts you less, sugar, and it is nearly always about letting the tool do its own job. Number 7. A drop of blue is how you get white. Now this one is my favorite because it sounds like foolishness, and it is pure science. White cloth does not stay white, honey. It goes yellow as it ages and as the soap builds up. So how do you fix yellow with no bleach in the house? You do not take the yellow out. You cover it up with blue. There was a little bag of bluing, a deep blue powder tied up in a scrap of cloth, and in the last rinse water she would swish it around until the water was just barely tinted, no more than a hint. The whites came out of that rinse with a whisper of blue in them, far too faint to see as blue. And your eye, sugar, reads blue and yellow together as white. Blue is straight across from yellow, so the one cancels the other. That is the whole trick, and every bottle of laundry brightener on the shelf today is still doing that exact same thing with a fancier chemical. Now the danger is easy to guess. Too much and you have got blue shirts and everyone will know what you are up to. A hint, honey. The lightest hand you have got. Number 8. Rinse twice and put vinegar in the second. Here is where people quit too early, and it is the main reason old clothes felt stiff and scratchy. Soap that stays in the cloth does not just sit there being clean, honey. It dries into a hard gray film. It makes the cloth stiff and dull. It gets into your skin and itches, and it grabs dirt faster the next week. So mama, rinse twice, always. The first rinse takes out most of the soap. The second rinse takes out the rest, and into that one went a good splash of vinegar. Now the vinegar sounds like it is for the smell, but it is not, sugar. It is chemistry. Soap is on the alkaline side, and vinegar is an acid, and the acid neutralizes what is left and lets it rinse away instead of clinging. It also softens the water a little more, and it takes the smell of the lye soap out of the cloth. Clothes come out of a vinegar rinse soft, and they smell like nothing at all, which is exactly what clean is supposed to smell like. And the vinegar smell dries away entirely, honey, not a trace of it left on the line. Number 9. Wringing takes 2, and they twist against each other. A wet sheet is a heavy thing, honey, and if you have ever tried to wring one out alone, you know you can twist, and it just turns in your hands. So wringing was a 2-person job, and it is how the children got put to work. You each take an end, and you twist in opposite directions. That is the whole thing. If you both twist the same way, the sheet just rolls over. Twist against each other, and the rope shortens and tightens on itself, and squeezes the water out of the middle, and it comes out in a stream. And there is a good reason to get it as dry as you possibly can before it ever goes on the line, sugar. Wait. A soaking sheet is heavy enough to sag a rope line down into the dirt, and heavy enough to stretch itself out of shape while it hangs, and never come back right. It also dries hours faster. Wring it hard, honey. It is worth the arm. And do not wring your knits and your good woolens that way. Those get pressed between 2 towels instead, or you will have a sweater long enough for a horse. Number 10. The starch came out of the potato pot. Sunday shirts and collars and the good tablecloth got starched, and Mama never once bought starch. When she boiled potatoes, that cloudy water in the pot was already full of starch, and instead of throwing it out, she saved it and thinned it with water and dipped the collars in it. If it was not potato day, she would stir a spoon of flour into cold water, cook it a minute until it went clear and thin, and use that. And starch is not just for looking crisp, honey, though it does that. Starch is a shield. It coats every fiber, so the next week when a boy gets gravy on his collar, that gravy goes into the starch and not into the shirt, and it all washes out together next Monday, and the shirt underneath is untouched. That is the part people forgot. Starch was armor, not vanity. Dip only the parts that need it, the collar and the cuffs in the front, wring it out, and hang it. And a warning, sugar. Do not starch anything you are putting away in a drawer for the season, because the silverfish and the mice will eat the starch and take the cloth with it. Number 11. The sun is the bleach, and here is the other half of the white shirt, sugar. The sun, not shade, not a porch, not a rack indoors, and not a dryer. Direct hard sunlight on wet white cloth, all day. And it is not that the sun dries them, honey. It is what the light does while they are wet. Sunlight carries ultraviolet in it, and when it hits wet cloth, it breaks down the stains and the yellowing right in the fiber and pulls them apart into things that rinse away with the water as it dries. It is a real bleaching action, free, every clear day, and it is gentler on the cloth than anything in a bottle. Wet is the important word, honey. It barely works on a dry shirt. So a stubborn stain that would not come out of the wash did not get thrown away. It went out on the grass in the sun still wet and got looked at again tomorrow. That is why every one of these mountain women hung the whites out where the light was hardest and hung the colors in the shade. Same sun, two completely different jobs. Number 12. Clothes dry in the freezing cold, and folks never believe me. Wash day did not stop for winter, honey. The children still got dirty in January, so the wash went out on the line at 20 degrees, and it froze solid, and I mean solid. Mama would bring in a pair of my daddy's long johns standing up on their own like a man was still in them, and lean them against the wall by the stove, and we children thought that was the funniest thing that ever happened, every single time. But here is what nobody expects. They were dry, not wet and frozen, dry. Because ice does not have to melt to leave sugar. It can go straight from ice into the air without ever being water in between, and there is a word for it. Sublimation. And it is the same thing that happens to the ice in your freezer that slowly disappears off a forgotten bag of peas. It is slow. It takes most of a cold, clear day, but it works, and the wind helps it along. And I will tell you something else. Clothes that froze on the line came in smelling better than anything else all year. Cold, clean air, and nothing else in them. Number 13. There is an order on the line, and everybody could read it. The line was not loaded any old way, sugar. Sheets and tablecloths went at the ends where the line is highest and tightest, because they are heavy, and they need the height to keep out of the dirt. The middle of the line sags, so that is where the little things went, and there was a forked pole to prop that middle up once it was loaded. Shirts hung by the tail, never by the shoulders, so the pin marks land where nobody sees them, and the shoulders dry smooth. Breeches by the cuffs, socks by the toe, things of a kind hung together, all the pillow slips in a row, all the towels in a row, because it looks orderly, and because it is faster to take down and fold. And a woman's underthings were hung on the inside line, behind the sheets, where the road could not see them, because the line was public, honey. Anybody walking past could see your wash, and know exactly how your family was doing, and I will come back to that at the very end. Number 14. Blood gets cold water, and never anything else. Now we come to the stains, honey, and this first one is the one that costs people the most clothes, because they do the natural thing, and the natural thing is exactly wrong. You see blood and you reach for hot water, because hot is what cleans. Do not. Blood is protein, protein sugar, and protein cocks. Hot water does to a blood stain precisely what a skillet does to an egg white. It sets it hard and clear into the fiber, and then it is there forever, and no soap alive will get it out. Mama's rule was cold water immediately, and I mean the coldest you have, and just keep it running through the back of the cloth, so it pushes the stain out the way it came in, instead of driving it deeper. If it had already dried, she would soak it in cold salt water for an hour first. And for the stubborn ones there was a strange old one that works, honey. Your own spit on a small fresh spot, because there is something in it that breaks protein down. Cold, cold, cold. Write that one on your hand. Number 15. Grass gets buttermilk and a day in the sun. Grass stain is a green dye, honey. It is chlorophyll straight out of the plant, and it is not dirt sitting on top of the cloth. It has stained the fiber the way a berry stains your fingers. Soap alone will not shift it, and boiling actually sets it worse. So Mama had a two-step for the knees of every pair of breeches in that house. First she soaked the spot in buttermilk, or in clabbered milk that had soured, and let it sit for an hour or more. The sour milk has a mild acid in it that loosens that green dye's hold on the fiber. Then it went out wet on the grass in the sun, and the sun finished the job the way we talked about at number 11. Buttermilk to loosen, sun to break it down. If she had no buttermilk, she used a paste of molasses instead, which sounds mad and does work. What she never did, sugar, was throw it in the boiling kettle first, and then wonder why it went permanent. Treat the stain before the wash. Every single one of these is treat first, wash after. Number 16. Draw the grease out before you ever put it in water. Grease and water will not mix, sugar. Everybody knows that, and yet the first thing folks do with a grease spot is stick it in the wash. All that does is spread it thinner and drive it in. Mama's way was to pull the grease up and out of the cloth before any water touched it. She heaped dry cornmeal on it, a good thick layer, or wood ashes, or plain dirt from the yard if that was what was to hand, and she left it alone for an hour, or overnight. That dry powder wicks the grease up out of the fiber into itself, honey, the same way a paper towel takes up a spill, and the longer it sits, the more it takes. Then you brush all that off, and now you rub soap into what is left and wash it. If you skip the drawing step, you are asking soap to do a job twice as big, and the modern version of this is exactly the same trick with a different powder, honey. Cornstarch, talcum, chalk. It is the oldest one in the book, and it still beats most of what you can buy. Number 17. The rust stain, and why bleach makes it worse. Here it is, sugar, the one I promised you at the top. Rust. It comes off a wet nail on the line, off a leaky tin roof, off a bucket handle, off the iron in your own well water, and it is the one stain where the modern medicine does not just fail, it does harm. Because chlorine bleach is an oxidizer, honey, and rust is already iron that has been oxidized. So you pour bleach on a rust stain, and you oxidize it further, and you set that orange in there permanently, and now nothing will move it. I have watched people ruin a good tablecloth that way, and I have done it myself once. Mama went the other direction entirely. Rust wants an acid, and it wants sunlight. Squeeze lemon juice on the spot. Heap salt on top of the wet lemon, and lay it out flat in the strongest sun you have got. And leave it there. Wet it with more lemon if it dries out. The acid takes hold of that iron and turns it into something that will wash away, and the sun drives it. An hour, maybe an afternoon. It is nearly 100 years later, and it is still the best answer there is, and it costs you a lemon. Number 18. Berry and wine get boiling water from up high. Now here is one that looks like a stunt, and is really just physics, honey. Berry stains, blackberry, pokeberry, wine, fruit juice, are a dye, and they have to be pushed back out the way they came in. So Mama would stretch the stained part of the cloth tight over the mouth of a bowl and tie it, or hold it, get the kettle boiling, and pour that water from a good 2 feet above it, straight down through the stain, and the height is the whole point, sugar. That fall gives the water force, and it drives through the weave and carries the dye out the backside into the bowl instead of spreading it sideways across the cloth. Boiling and berry is the one time hot is right, because a fruit stain is sugar and dye, not protein, and heat does not set it. It looks like a magic trick when it works, and it works on a fresh stain nearly every time. Now do not you dare do this on wool or on anything you care about the shape of, and never on blood. Fresh berry, stretched tight, poured from high, that is the recipe. Number 19. Ink goes into sour milk overnight. Ink was a real problem in a house with school children, sugar, because a leaky pen in a shirt pocket could cost you the shirt, and the answer in Mama's kitchen was a bowl of milk that had gone. Sour milk, clabber, buttermilk, whatever had turned. You push the inked part down into it, and you leave it overnight, and in the morning that milk has gone gray, and the shirt has not. The acid in the soured milk breaks the ink loose from the fiber, and the fat in the milk carries it off, and then it washes out with plain soap. If the milk went dark quick, she would pour it off and put fresh on, and go again. Same bowl of sour milk worked on the grass stains from number 15, so it earned its keep twice. And you will notice, honey, that half of these old answers are something acid. Vinegar, lemon, sour milk, buttermilk. Those women had no idea they were doing chemistry, and they had worked out the right chemistry anyway, by trying it, and by their mothers telling them, and that is a kind of knowing that is every bit as good. Number 20. 2 irons, and the wet finger test. There was no dial on Mama's iron, honey, because Mama's iron was a solid block of iron. They called them sad irons, and the sad in it just means heavy. That is the old meaning of the word. They sat right on the stove top and got hot, and there were always at least 2 of them going, because the one in your hand is losing heat every second it touches cloth. So you iron until yours has gone cool. You set it back on the stove, and you take up the one that has been heating, round and round all afternoon. And to know if it was ready, she would wet her fingertip and touch it to the sole, quick as anything. If it just went quiet, too cool. If it hissed sharp and the drop skittered off and vanished, that is ready. If it spat and jumped angry, too hot, and she would set it aside a minute or rub it on a rag first. That fingertip was the thermostat, sugar, and she was accurate within a few degrees, and she never once got burned that I saw. There is skill in that, real skill, and nobody ever wrote it down. Number 21. A scorch mark is not always the end. And with irons that hot, honey, scorching happened, especially to a girl learning. You leave that iron sitting one breath too long, and you lift it, and there is a brown iron-shaped ghost on the front of your daddy's good shirt. Now if it is dark brown or black, the fiber is burned, and it is done, and I will not lie to you about that one. But a light tan scorch is not burned. It is only the very surface of the fiber toasted, like the top of a biscuit, and that will come out. Mama would wet the spot, sometimes with a little vinegar in the water, and put that shirt out flat on the grass in the full sun, and leave it the day. The sun that took out the grass stain takes out a light scorch too, and it is the same action doing it, breaking down what is darkened. If it was still faint at evening, she would wet it again and give it another day. She saved a good many shirts that way, sugar, and a good many children from crying, and mine was one of them. Number 22. Sprinkle them, roll them, and let them wait. You do not iron a bone-dry shirt, honey. It fights you, and it will not take a crease, and you will be at it twice as long. But you cannot iron a soaking one either. What you want is evenly damp all the way through. And here is how she got it. Off the line, she would dip her hand in water and flick it over the clothes, or fill a bottle and shake it over them, then roll each piece up tight like a jelly roll, pack the rolls in a basket, cover it with a towel, and leave them an hour or overnight. In that time, the water that was on the outside travels all the way through the cloth and evens itself out, so there is no wet spot and no dry spot anywhere. Then it presses like a dream, and now you know exactly what the steam button on a modern iron is for, sugar. It is trying to do in 1 second what Mama did in an hour, and hers was more even. If you ever iron anything difficult, honey, damp it and roll it the night before. You will be astonished. Number 23. Every seam got looked at before it went back in the drawer. This one is not about getting things clean, sugar. It is about why her clothes lasted 20 years and ours last 2. Nothing went back in a drawer without being looked over. Coming off the line, she would run her eye and her hand over each piece, and a seam that had started to give, a button hanging by one thread, a small hole at the elbow, got fixed right then, that evening, in the lamplight. Not later, because a seam that has gone loose 1 inch will go 6 inches the very next time it is worn, and then it is a real repair or a rag. 1 inch is 2 minutes with a needle, 6 inches is an evening, and a tear across a knee is a lost pair of breeches. Wash day was inspection day, honey, and that is the actual reason those clothes lasted, more than the soap and more than the sun. And it works on everything, sugar, not just cloth. Whatever it is cheapest to fix on the day it first goes wrong. Number 24. Not 1 drop of that water was thrown away. Mama carried every bucket of that water up from the spring by hand, honey, so the notion of pouring it out on the ground was very nearly a sin. When the washing was finished, that gray soapy water had a whole second day of work in it. It went on the porch boards and the steps with a stiff broom, and it scrubbed them, because it is still soap. It went on the outhouse floor. It went over the doorstep. What was left went out on the flowers, and on the fruit trees, never on the vegetables she meant to eat, and the soap in it kept the bugs and the aphids off the roses. The very last of it, the dirtiest, went to settle the dust in the yard path. 1 tub of water washed the clothes for 8 people, then scrubbed the porch, then fed the roses. Nothing in that house had only one use: sugar. Not the ashes, not the grease, not the potato water, not the sour milk, and not the wash water. That is not being poor, honey. That is paying attention. Number 25. The line was how the world knew you. And here is the last one, sugar. And it is not a trick at all. In that holler, your clothesline was the only thing about your household that everybody could see. It faced the road. And people looked, honey. They surely did. They could tell if your whites were white or gone gray. They could count the children by the shirts. They could see if there was a new baby coming by the little things appearing. And they could see when there was sickness, because the wash stopped. They could see if a woman was managing or if she was going under. And that is a hard weight to put on a Monday. And my mama carried it, and her whites were white, and she was proud, and she had every right to be, because that line was not laundry, sugar. It was testimony. It said, whatever else is happening in this house, we are holding. And when I remember my mama, I do not first see her at the stove. I see her at that line with her hands red, and the wind taking the sheets, 70-some years ago. And I have not got a photograph of it, and I do not need one. Well, that is wash day, sugar. Kettle to clothesline, and I hope you will forgive me for making you wait on it. Now I want to hear from you, honey, down there in the comments. Did your mama or your grandmother have a stain trick I did not say? Because I know good and well there are 100 of them, and every family has got its own, and I read every last comment with my evening coffee, and I have already learned things from you people that my own mama never told me. Tell me too if you have got a clothesline still. If you learned one thing today, you go on and press that like button. It helps an old woman more than you know. And if you want to keep these old ways alive with me, then you subscribe and bring somebody young back with you next time. And next time, sugar, we are going down the cellar steps. The root cellar, how you keep a winter's worth of food alive in the dark with no electricity, why the apples must never sit next to the potatoes, and the one mistake that will rot the whole bin before Christmas. That one has saved people real money, honey, and it is coming. This is Granny Pearl, and my chair is always right here. Bless your heart for sitting with me. Now go hang something in the sun,